She won't say she's all in, but every tiny move screams it if you know how to listen. She watches you in ways she pretends not to. That attention is quiet, persistent, and precise. The first clue is memory. She keeps the details you discard. A joke you made in passing becomes proof she stored a piece of you. A small preference you muttered once shows up later like evidence. She treats your words like currency, spending them back at moments when you least expect it. This isn't stalking, it's investment disguised as casual observation. She notices when your mood shifts and marks it without announcing why. She times her messages to the rhythm of your life, slipping into moments when you might be most receptive. You won't catch her making grand moves. Her signals arrive in increments that add up. She leans into micro moments because big risks terrify her. She'd rather collect confirmations than risk a full confession. That collection builds a map of you inside her head. She catalogs your routines, your pet peeves, the way you laugh in certain light. Those notes guide how she shows up next time. When she brings up something you mentioned weeks ago, it's not coincidence, it's proof of attention. Her questions are calibrated. They sound casual because she needs plausible deniability. She asks about your day, then steers toward what matters to her. Your plans, your priorities, the things that shape tomorrow. She tests compatibility with soft probes disguised as small talk. Her curiosity is focused. It looks like interest because it is interest. She avoids declarations out of fear. So she layers behavior over speech until her actions say what her mouth cannot. You'll see her create reasons to be near you. A sudden match in schedule, a coincidental route, a reason to cross paths. Those accidents are planned with the care of someone who wants proximity without exposure. She'll tune into your tone and match it, not to mirror mechanically but to keep harmony so you won't retreat. When you pull back, she softens her approach to avoid scaring you away. When you step forward, she inches closer, a fraction careful, testing the water. Her restraint is tactical, it's protection for a fragile stake, your response. She practices small bravery. She risks brief vulnerability in tiny acts. A thoughtful emoji, an unexpected song, a responsiveness that exceeds casual norms. Each small push is a probe for safety. If you respond with steadiness, her guard drops a degree. If you react with volatility, she tightens again. This is emotional calibration, not gamesmanship. She's choosing survival over spectacle. Read the pattern, not a single moment. The devotion hides in the way she returns to you when others drift. The attention that looks harmless is actually commitment rehearsed in increments. If you learn to value those increments, you'll see the shape of what she won't yet say. She sacrifices small comforts to match your availability. She modulates her voice when she mentions you. She stores tiny victories and regrets alike. Pay attention to the return pattern. It reveals where her heart keeps coming back. Notice it. It matters deeply. A single offhand message becomes a tiny anchor in her day. She turns casual exchanges into private evidence. That brief goodbye at the corner becomes a scene she replays. She dissects tone, spacing, and emojis like clues. Small pauses become proof, and punctuation becomes meaning. A moment that you toss away becomes a ledger entry in her mind. She hoards these fragments because grand risks are too dangerous. Those little proofs stabilize her feelings. They build trust in increments. She treats brief contact as data points, not drama. Every short reply is measured for warmth or distance. A 5-word text can comfort her for hours or unsettle the whole evening. She returns to past conversations to reassure herself. Old messages become comfort items she revisits when doubt creeps in. When you laugh at something you barely remember, she files that moment as validation. She doesn't need long confessions to feel secured. She needs consistent signals. That's why she values repetition over spectacle. She notices trends in how you reply and assigns meaning to rhythm. A steady cadence in your responses calms her more than a grand speech. She interprets small patterns as the architecture of your interest. You'll see her reference throwaway details to test if the pattern holds. She brings up past jokes not because she's stuck, but because she's confirming continuity. Those tests are quiet checks for whether her emotional investment is safe. She turns micro-interactions into a barometer for your availability. If your behavior aligns over time, she relaxes incrementally. If it fragments, she tightens her control, becomes cautious, and steps back. The emotional temperature of her day depends on tiny exchanges. A delayed reply becomes a weight that alters her mood. A quick reaction lifts her, while hesitation freezes her confidence. Small acts of consideration register more vividly than rare grand gestures. A consistent message thread trumps a single dramatic declaration. She values presence over promises. That is why she calculates outcomes from breadcrumbs, not banners. Every brief attention you offer contributes to a ledger she keeps in private. That ledger dictates her courage to move closer or to protect herself. She will amplify or withdraw according to the entries in that ledger. Her investment is cumulative. It grows through repeated proof. She learns your reliability through a pattern of minor confirmations. The habit of checking your reaction becomes a quiet ritual. She watches for recurrence. Repetition equals reliability, and reliability equals safety. So when you think a short message is meaningless, remember it is part of her scorecard. The small things are the currency she spends on hope. She prefers gentle consistency to volatile intensity. When the micro moments line up, they add up into a foundation. And when that foundation forms, declarations become unnecessary because her experience already told the story. She even catalogs tiny habits. The way you tilt your head when you joke, the phrase you use when you're tired, the song that makes you pause. Those micro habits become anchors in her mind. They remind her that you are real and present. As these small confirmations accumulate, she risks larger steps. But she only does that when the small signals become steady. Her defenses tighten when someone else leans into your space. You'll notice small shifts in posture and tone long before she speaks. A guarded laugh, a narrowed smile, a throat cleared that wasn't there before. She doesn't stage scenes. She registers threats quietly and responds without announcing it. When another woman draws close, she measures the distance as if it were a test. Her eyes follow not to accuse but to map what might change. She will subtly reassert her presence. A nearer seat, a sharper comment, a shared memory dropped into the conversation. Not to start a fight. To stake a claim in the only language she can risk. Protection shows up as watchfulness. It looks like disproportionate focus on details that matter to her. She corrects the story you tell about yourself, not to control but to anchor what she believes is true. She will defend you in passing because defending you defends the image she keeps in private. Her barbs are soft. Her interventions are precise. You might miss the pattern because they are small and polite. But the accumulation is loud. She tolerates other voices but she resists being sidelined. When she senses disrespect aimed at you, she either steps in or withdraws. Both are responses that reveal attachment. A dismissive remark about your work, a joke at your expense, a flirtatious nudge, these tiny provocations trigger her reflexes. She doesn't always confront. Sometimes she creates distance to register disapproval. Other times she leans in to redirect the tone. Neither is passive. Both are strategies to preserve her sense of safety with you. Jealousy isn't a spectacle for her, it's a private alarm. She feels it first as tightness in her chest, then as a need to rebalance the interaction. Watch how she reclaims conversational space. She interjects memories you share or recalls details that only a close listener would know. That recall is her way of saying, I remember you. I was here first in some way. She uses proximity and information to remind the room of your bond. Her protectiveness also reveals itself through small acts of caretaking. She notices your plans and quietly adjusts her day to match. She brings things you mention loving, not to be noticed but because she remembers and values what matters to you. These gestures are both tender and territorial. They say without words that she is invested in your well-being. She might downplay them, shrugging off the intent with a joke, but the actions speak plainly. Pay attention to how she reacts to potential rivals. Her energy can become sharper, her jokes sharper, her sarcasm a shield. Yet beneath the sharper edges is an anxious tenderness. She tests the field, poking boundaries to see if you respond in a way that validates her safety. If you remain steady, the testing fades. If you falter, she protects harder or retreats further. Either reaction is evidence of risk assessment. This isn't drama feigned for attention. It's emotional triage aimed at preserving something she already holds dear. Recognize those moments for what they are, quiet ownership expressed through instinct, not malice. Listen to it, act with care. When she mirrors your rhythm, she's safeguarding a fragile hope. It looks effortless until you study the pattern. She copies cadence, posture, and jokes in tiny increments. Not to deceive but to stay within reach. Matching your pace is a form of containment. She keeps the distance from becoming too frightening. If you pull back, she dims her presence. If you move closer, she nudges forward but only slightly. Those small calibrations are chosen, not accidental. They are experiments with proximity disguised as comfort. She won't overstep boundaries because exposure is costly. So she calibrates herself to you layer by layer. You'll notice speech rhythms lining up. Words fall in similar beats. A mirrored laugh, a borrowed phrase, a matched sigh. These are soft anchors that prevent sudden ruptures. She wants to be known without declaring herself. Copying your gestures buys her time to read your reaction. When you stay calm, she allows herself more. When you flinch, she retracts and reassesses. This is emotional triangulation without the triangle. It's a gentle strategy to test whether she can exist in your world without breaking it. Her adjustments are invisible unless you look for repeatable behavior. They persist across conversations, not just in a single moment. She practices restraint so vulnerability doesn't feel reckless. That restraint is both armor and negotiation. She's constantly asking, how much closeness can I risk? So she designs small moves and studies your response. That study becomes her safety manual. She adapts interests not to pretend but to find shared ground. A new song in her playlist. A gym class attended once or twice. Not grand conversions, micro shifts that signal willingness. She buffers her longing with calculation. When she imitates your habits, it's a bid for symmetry. Symmetry promises predictability, and predictability soothes fear. Her mimicry is not empty. It's deliberate practice for connection. Notice when she mirrors without prompting. Observe who initiates the sync. She often does. She will echo your phrasing after a few exchanges. She will take on a stance you favor, subtly aligning her body to yours. That body language creates a private choreography meant to reduce tension. She keeps one eye on your comfort and another on the space between you. She calibrates so that your discomfort never becomes hers to bear entirely. And when she retreats, it's a reset, not a surrender. She recalibrates the next time with slightly different measures. This cyclical tuning is her way of managing risk while still moving forward. It's careful progress, inch by inch. In the language of attachment, mirroring is a plea disguised as mimicry. Read it that way and you'll see a person laboring to be brave without breaking. She wants closeness but not calamity. So she practices being close in ways that feel safe enough to hold. Her reflection of you signals a readiness test. She's asking whether your center holds when she edges closer. Respond with steady presence, not drama. A calm return grants permission for deeper steps. If you match intensity wildly, she freezes. If you remain stable, she relaxes and lets more of herself appear. Mirroring is a quiet measurement of your steadiness and worth. She probes your boundaries in small, clinical experiments. One day she steps back and appears indifferent. The next she returns with warmth that feels sudden. These swings are not theatrical, they are protective rehearsals. Her strategy is simple. Nudge, watch the response, learn. She creates moments designed to measure your steadiness without asking directly. A cool reply here, a delayed message there. Each adjustment is information. She studies your reactions for patterns, not for drama. If you stay composed, she marks you reliable. If you overreact, she assumes risk and tightens her hold on distance. These behaviors read like a nervous system trying to predict safety. She isn't trying to trick you, she's trying to survive the risk of being known. Her fluctuations are small and tactical, not chaotic games played for sport. She will pause conversations to see whether you pursue, then score your follow-through. She intentionally creates slight gaps so she can test the weight of your presence. Those artificial spaces expose the gravity of your attention. A calm reply becomes currency. An angry text becomes proof she was right to be cautious. Watch how her tempo changes depending on your tone. When you reply with patience, she relaxes a degree. When you reply in haste or judgment, she recoils. This is emotional feedback control, not manipulation. She refines her approach as she gathers signals from you. Sometimes she performs coldness to see if you value her enough to steady yourself. Other times she withdraws to observe whether you'll bridge the gap. Both actions are defensive. Both reveal attachment. She calculates the acceptable exposure and then tests the edge. Her tests are rarely confrontational. They are quiet probes wrapped in everyday behavior. A late-night silence, a short answer, a missed call. To those who expect fireworks, these moves look like ambiguity. To those who understand the math of risk and reward, they are clarity. She is asking a single question with many small acts. Are you steady enough to remain? Her internal scoreboard updates after each micro-test. She adds or subtracts trust based on your responses. This score determines whether she advances or withdraws. When the score climbs, she lets her guard down a fraction. When it drops, she fortifies the wall. Notice which of your actions raise her score. Calmness, consistency, gentle reassurance. Avoid reactions that puncture it. Volatility, contempt, impatience. Her experiments are not meant to punish. They are meant to reveal safety. If you meet the test with composure, she begins to trade rehearsed withdrawal for genuine closeness. But if you fail, the cycle repeats with more caution. Pay attention to the intent behind the push. It is not cruelty, it is calculation born of fear. Answer those tests with reliability, not drama, and she will slowly trust the presence she once only risked in tiny probes. Her pattern is a map. Each retreat and advance paints where her limits lie. If you respond with steady respect, she replaces tests with truth. She will risk clearer acts of affection when the ledger shows you keep your balance. That is when real confession becomes possible. Respond softly. Persistence teaches her heart to breathe again. Eyes are blunt instruments of truth. When she holds your gaze a beat too long then looks away, that confession lands harder than any scripted line. Watch the micro signs, a softened jaw, a brief flicker of doubt, an involuntary smile that arrives before the joke lands. Micro expressions are brief betrayals. They flash the feeling she refuses to name. Hands disclose what sentences conceal. A casual brush against your sleeve, a palm that lingers on a cup, fingertip that finds you in a crowded room. Those touches are trials in quiet bravery. Pay attention to where she places her weight. An open chest and forward angle signal comfort. A closed posture, crossed arms, or turned torso means she's protecting a fragile interior. Distance shifts are meaningful. She will subtly shorten or widen the space between you depending on her risk readings. Proximity is a language. She moves closer when curiosity wins, she steps back when fear demands a buffer. Foot orientation matters. Feet pointed toward you reveal interest even when conversation is neutral. When her shoulders and hips align subtly with yours, it shows alignment on a deeper, nonverbal level. Study tempo. The speed of gestures and speech changes around someone you matter to. Her laugh might quicken, her hands might animate in a way that only appears with certain people. She will mirror your breathing without realizing it, matching pace as a way to find emotional safety. Even silence speaks. Comfortable quiet together is intimacy. Restless silence is anxiety masked as calm. Watch for repeated glances that check your reaction. She seeks cues to calibrate her own behavior. Nervous tics give her away, hair tucks, lip bites, small throat clearings. Those rote moves are stress signals disguised as habit. Note how she dresses when she expects to see you. Subtle choices, freshly washed hair, deliberately casual outfit, hint of perfume, indicate preparation without confession. The way she modulates volume shows tenderness. Her voice may drop softer when she names you, or brighten when she's trying to hide intensity with playfulness. A falter in articulation around certain topics is a red flag for emotional weight. Touch frequency tells the truth about investment. If she reaches out more often than she claims, her body is ahead of her words. Observe repair moves after awkward moments. If she attempts to restore connection with small kindnesses, she values the link. If she avoids repair, she protects herself. Facial microshifts when you mention other names are immediate indicators of competing feelings. Pupil response, subtle skin flushes, and throat tightness react faster than rational denial. The context of the room changes her body language. She will adopt more contained posture in public but leak tenderness in private. Finally, watch for the pattern rather than a single event. One touch can be accidental. 100 small gestures create a trajectory. Bodies reveal truth before mouths do. Learn to read that grammar of motion. Respond with steady presence rather than spectacle. When you meet her signals with calm reliability, her body learns safety and slowly reveals more of what she's been keeping guarded. That's where honesty begins to form without a single spoken confession. She doesn't ask because directness terrifies her. She slips future scenes into casual chatter and watches how you respond. Those little hypotheticals act like probes, small, plausible, and soft enough to hide desire. A joke about a weekend becomes a way to test whether your plans could include her. A passing comment about a city turns into a private map where she imagines you both. She offers scenarios, not confessions, because scenarios are safer. They allow her to picture outcomes without risking clear exposure. Listen for the shift from present talk to imagined moments. She moves from "what are you doing tonight" to "wouldn't it be fun if," with the same breath. That pivot signals more than curiosity, it signals projection. Projection isn't performance. It's evidence she is mentally placing you at the center. She studies how easily you accept the hypothetical. If you engage, she gains permission to picture you more vividly. If you deflect, the images retreat like tide water and she protects the fantasy. Note how she frames those ideas. She keeps them light to give herself an out. She laughs as she plants a suggestion so she can claim it as banter later. That laughter is a shield, not a denial. Watch how details creep into the language she uses. She begins to sprinkle future-oriented words into everyday sentences. Someday, later, we should. They're soft deadlines for her imagination. They also test whether your responses add stability or create distance. Timeline questions are strategic. Asking about months or milestones is how she measures alignment. She listens for congruence between your goals and her imagined path. Compatibility isn't only values, it's logistics and rhythm, the commute, the priorities, the free hours. When she probes your 5-year vision, she isn't being intrusive, she's checking if her imagined life is feasible. Observe how she revisits the same topic with small variations. Repeated, gentle references indicate she's knitting a narrative where you figure in more often than coincidence would allow. She doesn't demand commitment, she measures it through incremental acceptance. Her hypothetical remarks can be disguised requests. Would you ever want to? Is her way of gauging feasibility without demanding promises. She craves signs that the future you describe includes space for her presence. Pay attention to the emotional weight behind the casual phrasing. If she pauses when you answer, it means your words either anchored or unmoored her thoughts. When she smiles after you agree, it isn't casual relief. It's a private confirmation that her projections are survivable. The more she practices sharing near-future ideas and the more you respond with steadiness, the safer her imagination feels. Safety breeds bolder conjectures, and those conjectures eventually harden into plans. So treat her hypotheticals as invitations, albeit fragile ones. Answer them with clarity and calm so her mind can trade hope for a plan. She may start sketching small logistics out loud, weekend routes, mutual friends who could join, events you both might like. Those practical fragments are how fantasy edges toward reality. Friends notice her future-focused questions. When others tease her about planning ahead, that's another slip of truth. Honor those slips by matching her steadiness. They are the first drafts of something real. Late at night she sends something half-formed because the dark makes honesty feel smaller and therefore safer. An impulsive message betrays the quiet war inside her, desire pushing through an armor of restraint. You get a tiny window, a line that seems casual but carries the weight of risk. She hits send and immediately worries she showed too much. Those morning regrets are part of the pattern. Brief courage, then quick self-repair. She'll erase a paragraph, then paste it back, then delete again, balancing on the edge of disclosure. Watch how she frames her slips. She often shrinks them with humor or a self-deprecating line. This is her way of making confession survivable if you laugh it off. Sometimes she chooses vulnerability dressed as a joke so she can deny intent if needed. When she shares something personal and tacks on a laugh, take the truth behind the joke seriously. Small photos arrive at strange hours. A shot of something that reminded her of you, an image she didn't plan to send. Those images are not random. They are test balloons released to see if you notice. A voice note with a softer tone than usual is a crack in the dam of careful reserve. Listen for the timbre change. It contains more than words. She might reveal a fear and then immediately soften it with a shrug emoji, trying to reclaim control. That reclamation is sorrowful evidence of risk she just took. She sometimes lets a memory slip out, a past failure, a tender moment, a confessional fragment. Then she retreats into irony so that the admission can be easily dismissed. These half-confessions are invitations disguised as accidents. They are her way of checking whether safety exists without asking outright. If you validate the slip gently, she files that reaction as permission to risk more. If you mock or minimize it, she buries the next attempt deeper. Timing matters. Vulnerability at the end of the day is more dangerous because defenses are low. A late message is a truth unfiltered by daytime armor. Don't treat those nights as casual. They are moments when her guard is naturally down. Take care with responses. Overeagerness scares, coldness punishes. A steady, concise reply tells her you can hold the space. Too much drama sends her back to the safety of silence. Observe how she revisits the same topic in smaller, braver iterations. Each repetition is less masked and more honest than the last. She tests the water in small waves until she learns whether the shore is safe. Her apologies after saying too much are not signs of manipulation. They are remnants of fear. She apologizes because revealing feels like breaking a rule she set for herself. When you answer with calm and clarity, she hears a future that tolerates softness. Those tiny confessions end up rearranging her boundaries. She learns that being seen does not always mean being exposed to harm. And when the accumulation of slips meets gentle steadiness, her guarded heart opens with fewer theatrics and more truth. Pay attention to the fragments. They are the scaffolding of a confession to come. Handle these moments gently. Her actions keep speaking when her mouth remains careful. You'll see her rearrange priorities quietly to make room for you. She starts choosing availability, not out of submission, but because proximity matters more than pretense. Tasks get shifted, plans recalculated, and small sacrifices are made without fanfare. These changes are stealthy proof that her life has a new center. She prioritizes your messages, answering with attention rather than speed. That pattern of preference eventually overrides the script she tells herself. Words claim casualness, but behavior drafts a different contract. She invests time she once spent elsewhere because your presence becomes a preference, not an obligation. Her schedule subtly bends toward chances to intersect with yours. When she edits her calendar, it isn't for convenience, it's evidence of intent. Conversations become checkpoints where she gauges whether you still occupy the same mental space. She schedules her courage in tiny increments and shows up even when it feels risky. You'll notice consistent little efforts. Favors offered without announcement, errands adjusted for a meeting that never gets named. Those invisible edits are acts of commitment disguised as convenience. Even her complaints may secretly protect the relationship. She flags problems quietly so they don't explode later. Her criticisms, when offered, aim to preserve rather than punish. She learns to tolerate uncertain moments because she values proximity more than perfection. Her priorities rearrange not with fanfare but with restraint. She trades impulsive freedom for careful reliability. This trade is not a loss, it is a reallocation toward something she deems worth protecting. Friend groups shift subtly. She reintroduces you into conversations as a steady facet of her day. Casual mentions accumulate until they become an established thread in her social narrative. She references mutual experiences more often, embedding you into stories she tells. Those repeated inclusions stitch you into her public persona in small but irreversible ways. You'll hear her start defending your choices when others doubt them. That defense is not performative. It is protective because she has internalized your value. Her emotional economy changes. She invests affection where it yields safety and mutual return. Little acts of care rise in frequency. Remembering to bring something you like, checking in when you're tired, an absent-minded gesture that has pattern. Those patterns become the scaffolding for greater vulnerability. When stakes climb, she doesn't always announce the climb, she adjusts. She gives more without dramatizing the shift. That steady accumulation breeds trust faster than a single confession ever could. The moment her actions consistently outpace her proclamations, the truth is clear. She has already decided. You'll see consistency where she previously offered ambiguity. That consistency turns casual contact into a relationship's backbone. Watch how her language changes. Certainty creeps into small pronouns, tentative maybe sentences shorten into firmer suggestions. She begins to plan with pronouns that include you, even if she won't label it aloud. Those linguistic shifts matter. They mark the point where imagination yields to intention. When actions become habit and habit becomes pattern, her hidden attachment steps into daylight without fanfare. Respond with reciprocal steadiness and watch the hidden become spoken. Her patience becomes proof. Her presence becomes the confession you need. Respond with reciprocal steadiness and watch the hidden become spoken. Her patience becomes proof. Her presence becomes the confession you need. And if you're ready to uncover more truths like this, make sure you subscribe, because the next revelation might change everything you thought you knew.